Welcome to the Family Pictures Podcast. I'm Michael Branson Smith, and I'm here with the
trusty sidekick, Jim Groom.
Yes, Jim Groom. We are on our, I think, 64th podcast, fifth and final film in our Intruders of Families series. And this one is another pot boiler. It actually brings us right back to the beginning, doesn't it? Right?
It kind of does. And, while I was watching this, I was thinking to myself, oh, Michael, what have you done to me? What have you wrought?
Yeah, but with the house. You go ahead. Well, we should tell people.
Look away.
This is The Housemaid, the Paul Feig 2025 semi-erotic, definitely erotic thriller. Slash
somewhat erotic, right?
Yeah, but it's
deeply
it's
erotic.
But it's also kind of the erotic part is like a rom-com, like, hey, they finally get together moment. And you're like, what the fuck?
It's so weird.
And it's also something out of, we're back to Fatal Attraction almost, but the intruder this time is hiding in plain sight, but we're not going to get to that right away because I think we're going to play along with the kind of the trope of this film, which is it has a twist. And so we're going to twist you audience a little bit if you haven't seen this movie yet. I highly recommend it. It's directed by Paul Feig, who's really well known for directing these female-driven vehicles comedies originally with a lot of Melissa McCarthy with Bridesmaids, The Heat, Spy. I've only watched Bridesmaids, and people love those movies because Melissa McCarthy is fucking awesome. She's the best. And then he did his first kind of thriller, again, a female-driven comedy, black comedy / mystery with Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively, and A Simple Favor, which has got a sequel that's about to be released, and it's another Simple Favor apparently. And so he's on this corner, and he also holds a place in my heart for having created the cult favorite Freaks and Geeks, which was got the so-called life treatment, where it got one season, was immediately canceled because not enough people watched it. Then people watched it, and then it immediately got 1 million Emmys and launched the careers of incredible actors like Seth Rogen, Jason Segel, Linda Cardellini, James Franco, and then the list goes on and on.
Yeah, and then it became kind of cult status because it never came back. The other thing that Feig did was Ghostbusters 2011, right? Yeah.
Didn't do as well, but I think he got like Submarine because there was all this hate. Like, I don't want to see a bunch of women Ghostbusters, and so it never really had an opportunity. But in the realm of these comedies he was doing, I mean, Bridesmaids was like a juggernaut of a comedy. It was like, I think, one of the best grossing comedies of all time, if not at the time. And then, he and Melissa McCarthy team up a couple more times, which is really cool. But then he takes this lane, right, where he starts to produce in A Simple Favor, and now this film, The Housemaid, where he finds these great, pulpy, trashy thriller novels and turns them into these kind of on the edge of parody films. And it doesn't make sense at first because that's how I was just like, what is going on? And we were talking about it right before we started. when right at the opening shot where we're seeing, the Sydney Sweeney character driving to the interview at the Winchester, gated house. And it's just this really bland, like, drone shot from above. And I'm just like, what is this thing I'm watching?
It's a really
here?
Bland McMansion with like a deforested lawn, and it's kind of somewhere. I guess it's in Great Neck. They do name it, so it's in a really wealthy suburb of New York City. And like, even the house itself was like, wow, this house is kind of uninteresting for all its grandeur. It is kind of boring.
Yeah, and it's also kind of on like 3/4 of an acre. Like the neighbors are, even though it's this grand house, the plot of land is the size of a postage stamp relative to the size of the portrait that's in that postage stamp. It's just like it's taken up all the space, and which is the classic McMansion-y kind of community that this film is inhabiting. And before we keep going on the film itself, we should speak of the writer of the Housemaid that the film is based on is Frida McFadden, and that's basically her pen name. Her real name's Sarah Conan. And I mean, I had never read anything about her, but the thing that just blew my mind is like, yeah, I was in medical school, and then while doing my working my intern, I wrote my first novel, and then I proceeded to write 30 more.
Exactly.
30 more novels over 13 years. And I was like, fuck, this woman is
Yeah, it's like
really,
almost 3 novels a year.
yeah, it's fucking crazy. And, that's some like classic pulpy, trashy writing that people just like eat up. Apparently, France is a big fan, the readers in France. That was the one random factoid I also read. It's like she sold millions of copies of her books in France, so it's like basically that's 5 books per French woman, probably, because these are all primarily written for women. Who knows? I can't even imagine. And so one of the things I also was talking about is like I watched this movie and there's things about it. It's like there's some really obvious topics. Like it's kind of there's a serious theme kind of layered on top of it is all this like sickly sweet, kind of icing of performance. And most importantly, Amanda Siegfried performance as the wife and mother, Nina
Who
Winchester,
is
who's
amazing in this?
she's amazing.
Great.
Yeah.
She is great.
And I was just trying to make sense of this movie because like it telegraphs everything. Like it just hits you on the head with a hammer, or maybe it's like a glass globe that you whack a man with in the back
So
of the head when he's behaving badly. Just as
I
well.
didn't get this movie. And I mean, I'll be honest with you. Antonella walked out midway. She's like, I cannot believe you're making me watch this trash. And then my daughter comes in. She's like, oh, you're watching that? I'm like, yeah. She's like, that's the one with Sydney Sweeney. I'm like, exactly. I had no idea who Sydney Sweeney was. She goes on to tell me all about Sydney Sweeney and the fact that she did this very controversial jeans ad, which was kind of a eugenics thing, like jeans versus the play on GENES. Also, she likes to show full frontals, so go back to the 80s. I mean, this movie was kind of divided my house. And I was kind of like, I have no idea what's happening. I can't look away from this train crash. But then as soon as you said Verhoeven, which was 5 minutes ago, I was like, oh, now I completely understand what this movie's about.
Me too. And it's so funny because, and it's all credit to this writer for El Confidencial, Marta Medina del Valle. Valle. Double L's, Jim. Double L's in Spanish. Yeah. Valle. I hope I'm right. Otherwise, I'm more. I mean, I do know some basic phonetics of Spanish. But anyway, she in this amazing,
the funky Cole Medina.
Yeah, she writes this incredible review.
Funky Cole Medina.
She describes that Feig is playing in the same swimming pool as Paul Verhoeven and Brian De Palma, and I was like, oh, this is like the Starship Troopers of erotic thrillers. It's intentionally over the top. And he knows what he's doing, Paul Feig. He's not just like this bland director of a thriller. He's intentionally playing in the pool of the cable Lifetime kind of, thriller that's really trashy and overcooked. And he's playing on the edge of parody. And I was like, oh, how fucking genius is that? I just didn't know. It wasn't so nakedly obvious to me because those Lifetime films are just not, I'm not the demo for them. We are not supposed to be doing this movie at all.
Well, exactly.
We need 2 women to take over.
But the other thing is there's so many shows like this on
Yeah,
Netflix and beyond that,
exactly.
my daughter has deep into that. I'm like, this is such trash. So it's hard if you don't know the genre, to your point, to
Yeah.
distinguish what's trash from what's a joke about the trash.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And that's why first I was like, this is just trash, And then we realized, but it's got two big celebrities in Sydney Sweeney and Amanda Seyfried. But then there's the Andrew Winchester, which is to me, because he's like what's his name? The guy who played Thor. Um,
Oh yeah,
uh,
what is his name? I
Chris
don't know.
Hemsworth. He's like a
There
low
you go.
rent Chris Hemsworth. That's it.
He
And it was like,
totally is.
why didn't they get Chris Hemsworth? Because if they had Chris Hemsworth, oh my God, this movie would have been even another step above the over the top. But he's a serviceable, like beautiful man, right? And he's playing this pose of the perfect tech bro, sensitive guy, can talk to his daughter, cooks, listens. He's this fantasy. He's this fiction of
He
a
is the
perfect
best.
man.
He
Yeah.
sold me the first half of the film. So I was like, when he came down the stairs with the daughter in his
Yeah.
arms or
Cece.
in his
Yeah.
hand, and he's got
Yeah.
that sweater on, that knitted white sweater,
Yeah.
and he's going to take her out to the park. And then, I was just like, I am totally in because let me be clear here. I am not against trash. I like trash, but this
No,
isn't my
no.
genre of trash. So
Yeah.
I kind of felt like out of my element. But there was something about him that I
Mhm.
was like, this is so interesting because he's so perfect. And that's all I kept on saying and joking about with my wife the whole time was like, this guy is so perfect. Look at this. I'm like, I'm in love with him. And like I think he's the best thing. And so she was joking, but like there was a point in the movie which we'll get to where she got up and left.
Oh,
But yeah.
oh, I can't wait to hear it. Yeah, he's all these assembled cliches. He's got the gym body, the perfect smile. He's tech wealth. He's good dad. He's soft spoken and emotionally intelligent. And we're just like, who is
Oh,
this
he's
dude?
punctilious. He's all about keeping the house perfect, right?
Uh-huh. Yep. Yep. And the cool thing is, so I mean, to start into the plot a little bit, the setup is, Millie is heading into an interview with a wealthy family to become a housemaid. And there's this important line in the midst of the interview, and it's like, of course, over the top. It's like the kind of Instagram trad wife presentation of a perfect house, and she has all this coterie of food and the house is really great because it's not only is it your classic McMansion with these giant ceilings and big windows and all this fake expensive art. You're like, is that a no? It's just, it's a print of something. And then there's everything's white walls. It's like the Hamptons, the white walls and the highlights of the real wood on the banisters, of the dark wood on the banisters. And you're moving through this space and it's literally head spinning. There's a moment early on while Nina is walking around Millie, where they come to this spiral staircase, and it's literally head spinning. It's like kind of classic, almost Hitchcock like
Yeah.
spinning around, having the camera spin around from both directions, looking down at Nina and then looking up into the chandelier at the top. And so you're just kind of, we're just kind of like, okay, this is a setup. I mean, it's like whatever. It's not very clear its purpose, but then it roots you in Millie's real life situation immediately afterward, and we have this monologue, this point of view, because it's her diary. Because we later realize it's like her writing, and we learn her real life, which is what's Millie's like real
Millie's
voice.
real life is she's homeless. She lives out of her car and I don't know how deep you want me to go in, but like she's basically counting on this job to survive because she is without a home. Now, one of the things that struck me about the article by Funky Cole Medina, which is Mara Medina de Valle, and I thought it was really smart,
Valle.
Valle, which was really smart, is where she says, she doesn't know if Sydney, what's her last name?
Sweeney.
What's Sydney Sweeney was actually parodying herself or just playing it straight, and the film was
Yeah.
parodying her because she
Yeah.
kind of has she's somewhat of a controversial figure in Hollywood, according to my daughter.
Sure.
And I thought that was smart because I couldn't stand her. Whereas as much as I loved Amanda, right? I could not stand Sydney Sweeney. And
Okay.
I think part of it is she couldn't sell. I didn't believe for a second she was homeless. And I didn't,
Right.
she was completely affectless. Like, I am going to be arrested. Well, if I don't have this, everything's going to go away. No affect. Like, I just couldn't buy her. But now I'm starting to realize maybe that's the point.
That is the point, right? It's like she isn't a portrait of real homelessness, right? Like it's like how, and as Marcia described, it's like how is she keeping up her skin treatments, right? Clearly, she has a lot, and yeah. So at the same time, she's supposed to represent, this instability of life, like homelessness, and that she takes this role, and the line she uses in the interview is like, I realized I enjoyed being a housemaid, which is just obviously a psychotic thing to say. Like, no one really enjoys being a housemaid. No one wishes to be this kind of shadow of a servant and live in this place of opulence where you're just going to be totally trashed on constantly.
And I don't think anything speaks to that more to, Sydney Sweeney or Millie's uninterest or disinterest in being a housemaid than the fact that she won't get out of her street clothes. In particular, she won't let her cleavage go away. Like her cleavage is everywhere and it's like insisted on. And, usually Amanda Seyfried is in that situation, right? She's usually the object of desire. But this woman takes over the scene. And Amanda Seyfried is interesting because she's dressed in all this kind of, like you said, Hamptons white. She's got these bell bottoms. Like her outfits are interesting, but she's not at all sexualized in the same way. Whereas all Sydney Sweeney is sexualized. I mean, she wears tank tops to be a housemaid.
Right. And jeans. And her hair is a complete mess. She doesn't put her hair up. So whatever she's cleaning, she's got little roots flying everywhere, probably. It's like, how are you going to keep that out of the fruit basket? But so, I mean, in that context, it's all a charade. And so first there's this like appointed Instagram like view of the house. But once she gets the job, which she's surprised she gets the job because she does immediately present in this diuretic fashion voiceover that her CV, her resume is a complete charade. She never completed college or anything. But she gets hired anyway. And the very first morning she wakes up, she comes down to the most over the top obscene chaos in the house. And I just like, it's like, how could a house, I was looking at the images, it's like there are cupcakes that were made and cookies and then pizza and also spaghetti and also like a half a dozen other meals that had been all made and unfinished and left everywhere all over the kitchen, as well as like opened Amazon packages that are left all over the by the front door. And you're just like, what the fuck?
It's not like the 16 candles party.
Yeah. It's like there was like a frat party in the middle of the house, in the middle of the night that you just didn't hear, and you wake up and it's like, Nina, what the fuck did you do all night to pull this off? Because God knows I slept soundly in my attic room, which becomes important.
And isn't that not just when she walks down for the first night? Isn't it when she walks into the house after accepting the job? The house is a complete mess.
Oh, is it? Oh, am I getting confused? I thought it was the morning of.
I think so, because she comes in, the house is a complete mess. She starts cleaning it, and she's like, oh, Millie, I don't know what we would do without you, blah, blah, blah. But then she goes up to her room, comes down, and that's when Nina has the
Oh, you're
flip
right.
out
I
about the
apologize. Yeah, you're
PTA
right.
notes.
Yeah, right. And so this is the beginning of, yeah, you're right. Because when she first comes in, it's not from the night before. She comes in and it's absolute chaos. It's her first entrance into quote unquote the
Exactly.
real house. And
Yep.
so, yeah, you're right. It wasn't overnight. It was probably days of chaos, but it's still an inordinate amount of stuff.
I
And there's no
studied
way
this
Andrew.
movie really closely.
Oh, good job. Thank you. And so, yes, the next morning after it's been cleaned and after she's actually been introduced to Cece and Andrew, and who are incredibly weirdly standoffish initially. Well, actually, not weirdly, because that's actually how wealthy people perform their wealth in front of the help, is like to basically pretend like they don't exist and like, why are you talking to me? Which is actually very, very real in some ways, which is so funny. And the other one, this is a great, this is a side story. She has this piece of shit car, right? Classic, like it's a Honda Civic from the like mid 90s or early
Yep.
2000s. So it's a 15, 20-year-old car that's whatever, serviceable, it runs. And she parks it right in the front. And my mind immediately was like, there's no fucking way that family would let that piece of shit car be parked in front of the house. And to give this exact example, early in Amanda's career, when she was running the nonprofit Row New York, we would drive all over creation to pick up donations from all sorts of places, including like, private schools donating rowing machines to whatever else. And so we went to this really wealthy house in Southampton, and we were picking up this boat he was donating because he was like, oh, I don't really use it anymore. Meanwhile, it's like a $20,000 boat. And we're like, okay,
Nice.
whatever. It's free stuff. And so we drive into their driveway, and I swear to God, this is still to this day probably one of the nicest properties I'd ever seen in my life. It's because it's a compound. It's this beautiful like house that's out of a picture book, and there's these tiny little houses which are guest houses. There's a tennis court that's like a clay court, like a hard true court. It's incredibly expensive to upkeep. And then there's a 2 tiers surrounding it of an orchard surrounding the fucking tennis court, and the whole and then there's this literally cathedral to a barn, and he gave us a tour of this barn that was literally filled with, I think I saw a Rothko. I think I saw, like, I couldn't believe, like, there was millions of dollars of art inside of
Those
this thing. It's like,
Hampton
well,
barns are something, man.
yeah. Well, this barn was a barn disassembled and reassembled from 2 barns from Vermont.
It's
That's like
amazing.
this. And then, but the whole point of this story is when he was first walking us around to give us his tour of this like immaculate property, he points to one of the people that works there for him, and he's like, hey, can you figure out whose car that is out there and have them move it, because it was our trashy car that was in front of their house. And he's like, what the fuck is that piece of shit doing in front of our house? Ruining my tour, ruining my picture of my life for these people who I'm, oh my God. So anyway, this is the performance of wealth that we're existing in right here, which I think is really interesting. And Nina is the trope of the crazy wife, right?
She is. And she plays it well. At first, you kind of like, whoa. She comes down. She's pissed that she can't find the PTA notes because she's going to give a PTA talk. She's really upset about it. Millie comes down. She's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I thought you were cool and that we were going to, because what
Yeah.
she does the first time she introduces to her room, she gives her a phone. And she's like, the credit card's on the phone, whatever you need. It's like, yeah, here's a homeless person who just got a new phone and a credit card. Do whatever you want. Like, this is like, boom, she won at the races. She comes down, though, and she's saying, oh, this is the cost of it. My boss is absolutely like nuts. And
Yeah.
she's blaming me for stuff. And this is the point at which you really start to see the husband, because when you see the husband the first time, he's a little standoffish. He's like, oh, she's going to live here. And he's like either hiding something or he's just not cool with it. And, Nina's like, yeah, it's going to be fine. I told you, la, la, la. Anyway, as Nina is flipping out, and, Amanda Seyfried does a really good job of doing the
Yeah.
flip out. I
Oh my
was
God. She
convinced.
opens like 30 drawers in this, in like 2 minutes and like throwing things out of them. It's amazing.
I am liking this movie more and more as we even talk about it. But anyway, so as she freaks, and I got to go home and tell Antonello, like, look, you're wrong. This is what I learned from Michael Branson Smith. But
Our daughter is right.
exactly, and she's not going to like that. But anyway, the husband comes in, and he is this soothing presence. He's like, honey, don't worry. Do you have a copy on your computer? Oh, don't worry. I'll take our daughter to school so that you
Yeah.
have time to do this. Like, he is the most understanding. And then immediately he comes to Millie, the housemaid, and he's like, yeah, I'm sorry about that. And
Yeah.
just about immediately, he's starting to put on the moves. Like, he touches her
Yeah.
hand or does something. I don't know
Yeah.
exactly what. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nina's nuts. The husband is really, really nice, but obviously he wants out, or he's a kind of vector of possible love interest. That's where we
Right.
are. Am I right, Michael?
Yeah, and yeah, the thing that I love too about the Amanda Seyfried performance, and you're gonna love this, her performance reminded me of Donna from Vengeance Is Mine or Haunted, the film, the Michael
Oh,
Romer film, and
totally.
the way that she would just suddenly like in that film, Donna would just suddenly pop up behind Joe out of nowhere, right, and like interrupt her activities with
It's
her
right.
daughter. You know, and Amanda Seyfried's character, Nina, does this again and again where she just suddenly pops up through camera trickery right behind Millie. And she's like, fuck, just trying to clean here. It's like, fuck.
Just trying to clean in my tank top. Don't let mind
Yeah.
me.
Just with my breath falling out of them.
Exactly. What a weird thing. But I mean,
And
Amanda Seyfried, like, she did have emotion and like she's scary and she
yeah,
played it. Whereas
yeah.
I didn't see that in Millie at all.
No, but it's very much this Donna character who's really crazed, and I wonder if Feig ever watched that film. It would be so great to
Interesting.
hear, and I
Yeah.
hope he had. But she's this disruptor to the normalcy of the house, and so you know Amanda, Millie is you, she's the interloper initially, but she's not because she's just a worker. She's trying to perform her role dutifully, right? She's not trying to manipulate anything. And clearly, at first, you're like, oh, the manipulator in this story is is Nina because she just
Sure.
endlessly is gaslighting Millie over and over again, right? Like initially it's like, where did you put my PTA note? She's like, I don't fucking know. What's a PTA?
Yeah.
Never mind what are the notes. And this happens again and again early throughout the film. And again, Andrew is presented as this rescuer to Millie, right? And that's
Exactly.
the very important part of this story is that we're learning that Andrew is not only this beautiful man with this perfect smile. He's also being inserting himself to say, "Oh no, it's okay. You can have Saturday off." That was the first one, right? Where you
Exactly.
know we have we have Millie who's trying to take her day off, and Nina's like, "Where are you going? What are you doing? I've got to finish my PTA notes and rewrite them, and I need you to now take care of Cece." And she's like, and then this is where Andrew comes in and helps. And yet again, it says, you can go do your thing. And Nina allows it.
That's one of my favorite scenes in the movie because that's when
Yeah.
Andrew walks down with Cece on those stairs and he's got that sweater. And he
Uh-huh.
looks like he's coming out of an ad for a male model, right? Like he's
Yeah.
putting fashion like on some, and it was so over the top. And I should have known then. And it was like, oh, and he kind of is the white, literally the white, the knight in white armor, right? White shining
Yeah.
armor who calms and
Yeah.
like saves them. And you're like, oh, this guy is so good. And then there's another scene, right? And this is one of my favorite scenes is so Millie's kind of she's in this space up top at the top of the house, and it's like this triangular room at the very top, and the window doesn't open, and there's a deadlock outside. So an immediate red flag as she's introduced to the room. Deadlock,
Yeah.
no opening window.
This is where you're going to be staying, Millie.
Exactly. I mean, you knew something was going to come of this. You just didn't know what.
Right.
Anyway, she can't sleep, so she walks down. And in the beginning of the movie, as Nina was showing her around, she's like, you can use this basically movie theater in the basement whenever you want. It's the man cave, but feel free. So she goes down there because she can't sleep, and she starts, watching the movie, and they have like, junior mints and shit like that where you can pull out and eat all the candy. I love that shit. So I was like, oh,
yeah, that was so good.
It's so good.
Can we set that up? We got to do that.
Exactly. We need that for the Family Fiction podcast. So anyway, she does. And then Andrew comes in. And he's like, yeah, have you seen the old Family Feud? Talking about Richard Dawson and how cool he was. And then he's really kind of getting closer to her. And they're like, he's just so cool. On top of being the greatest husband in the world, he's just a good guy and a cool guy.
It's a good hang.
But you now, because Nina's nuts, you're now like, uh-oh, shit's going to come wrong. And of course, Nina comes in. And Andrew's just like, come on, man, babe, that's just what we're doing. You're not ready to hang. Or he says something like that, which is in the vernacular of our times. And you can see Millie like, oh, shit.
I'm so screwed.
You're so screwed. And this is the dynamic through the first part of the movie you have been trained to. And Paul Feig does a really good job. Is that his name, Paul Feig?
Yeah.
He does a really good job of setting your expectations up. You're expecting Nina, obviously, to be a manipulative, nutty wife.
Yep.
Millie to be a victim. And our boy Andrew just to be a dreamboat who's stuck in this horrible marriage.
Oh, he's so sad. Like, poor hot St. Andrew, which is really great. That's one of the lines from the very next day, because right at the end of that, Nina goes to Millie and says, stay the fuck away from my husband, which is really awesome, And she basically says she's fired, and she's like, give me one more chance, And so the very next day she goes into like, I labeled it in the notes as like, she goes into like super housemaid mode where she's being very attentive. And Nina's having like a lunch party with all, and this is where we get introduced to the neighborhood bitches, right? The housewives that have everything, and they're just all so into one another and how well they're doing in this performance of wealth and performance of perfect families. But the great thing, as soon as Nina walks away for, I can't remember the reason, they immediately start tearing her apart right in front of Millie, right? And it's ruthless. And they talk about poor St. Andrew. They call him poor Andrew, but at least he's got an airtight prenup, and none of the money's Nina's. So she's screwed. So she better be on her best behavior with him. It's really this great nasty talk, and they literally call him Hot St. Andrew, which is which I love.
Oh, so I love that scene.
Yeah.
That is because that scene also introduces you to the fact that Nina's just not like, housebroken crazy. Like, oh, I'll break up the house. I'll freak out, blah, blah, blah. She's so crazy that she tried to drown her own daughter.
Yep.
And Andrew saved her. And that's the story we get from the local neighborhood, right?
Right. Yeah. So it is a story not only of the household, but it's a story of the community. And so we learn that everybody knows that Nita's nuts, and everybody knows that Andrew is the savior to this family. And then we also learn soon that Cece isn't his real daughter either.
That's right.
And that we learn that, in fact, Cece, and it's kind of important to talk about Cece, because Cece's role in the beginning, you're just like, what the fuck is up with this little girl, right? There's an early scene where she's sitting at the table at the kitchen counter, and Millie's trying to serve her, and she says the glass is dirty, and she's like, what? I just took it out of the dishwasher. She's like, orange juice is a privilege and it doesn't deserve a dirty glass. And you're just like, what the fuck is up with that
Yeah,
line?
exactly.
And this comes up again right before um, we learn about like the fact that Cece is not Andrew's biological daughter. It's actually Nina's daughter from a previous relationship. But right before that, we see Millie glimpse Cece role playing with there's this dollhouse that's introduced in the beginning. It's like, oh, and he's not an architect, but he designed our house. He's intact. And Andrew, he also built this dollhouse that looks exactly like the house for Cece, so she could have this thing to play with. And it's those are the early quotes. But what's cool is we see this for another precursor in that Cece is role playing in the dollhouse with the characters, and this time it's the dad that says the quote, "Juice is a privilege," is coming from the dad at the dining room
Yep.
table in the form of the doll, and you're like, oh, okay, so it didn't come from her mother; it came from Andrew, and so that's one of the first clues to like a first chink in his like perfect armor, right?
Exactly. And it's nice and subtle because you can overlook it given how great Andrew is in every other way,
Yeah.
but you
Oh,
know
he
there's
is so
something
great.
amiss. But and I'm going to show you quick, and for those of you who are just listening to audio, you might miss this, but this is a picture of the dollhouse behind us.
Oh yeah.
And this is the perfect family that Michael chose for the background, which is a great choice, Michael. So now we have that. And the dollhouse actually plays pretty, like, he does a really good job of actually bringing it back and allowing us to understand what's happening with this family through
Hmm.
that little prop, which I really like. But we have kind of built it up, right? Andrew's the best. Cece's a little strange. Nina's psycho. And
Yep.
Millie's, stuck between a rock and a hard place, and she just wants to get out because she realized she's in a bad scenario, and she'll just do about any kind of labor to get out of there. She'll work in a
Right.
warehouse.
Right. And she's talking about getting out. And then there's the kind of weirdest, like horror adjacent scene that night where, suddenly, Cece's in the attic room, the triangular, right, room, and they're screaming. And so she goes to the door and she opens it. And I couldn't even tell what the fuck was going on. Like Nina has like a shard of glass that's all bloodied and I'm like, what is happening? And then Andrew shows up to like wrap her hand and puts the shard back in it. And I was like, what the fuck
Yeah.
is this scene?
What's going on?
Yeah. And then they
And
walk away.
and you assume Andrew's taking more abuse at the hands of
Yes.
Nina, who's just
Right.
losing it more and more because she invited Millie into the house, but in fact she couldn't deal with it.
Right. And this now leads to, this is one of the many moments where, Nina's presented as like almost like classically bipolar because the very next morning she's talking to Millie about being a lifesaver. I don't know what I'd do without you. After last night, I need to create this night out with my husband. Will you buy these tickets to the theater and get this hotel room? And she's like, of course, of course. And she's like, oh, thank you so much. And, you know, immediately moments later, like that afternoon, she's like, did you know? Nina's talking to Andrew. Did you know? I love that this is what this is digressing into the podcast. It's like this tit for tat because that's kind of what goes on. It's, did you
But
know that
I love
Millie
this movie now.
no, it's really, Millie bought these tickets for us and I told her not to because I was going to be going away with Cece on this trip. Can you believe that? And now I'm going to have to take her money away and she's going to have to pay for it. And Millie, of course, she's being gaslit. And of course, Andrew comes to the rescue. And this
Yeah,
becomes the beginning of the switch. And
that's right.
at first you're like, what the fuck's going on? And so the setup is simple. It's like, oh,
Spoiler
there are
alert.
these.
If you have not seen The Housemaid, and God knows why you would watch this podcast if you haven't, but if you have not seen The Housemaid, do not go past this point until you see the movie.
Yeah, because the first things that we've talked about are all kind of obvious and the same for the first 45 minutes to an hour of the film, and then we have the flip. We think we're getting kind of the rom-com romantic interlude that you would expect for finally Andrew's
Yeah.
going to get his just desserts. He says, "Oh,
Yes.
Millie, you take the tickets. Nina's away with Cece. Find a friend." She's like, "I have no friends. Maybe we should go together."
It's, and this is where me and Antonella were laughing. It's like everything goes wrong. Like, oh, maybe we should dance. I had one too many martinis. Maybe we
Yeah.
need to get a hotel room. Of
Uh,
course, we're getting separate rooms. Like everything is just, you know where it's leading, but it's just
yeah.
kind of like hitting you over the head.
Like I
Like, and
said, it's so telegraphed,
totally.
right? Oh, there it is.
Exactly. And then Nina freaks out, right? And she sends all these messages to Millie about like, you're fired. And then Millie is really upset because she can't afford to lose the job because we now know that Millie's on probation. And in fact, if she loses the job, she goes back to prison for 5 years for a whole nother thing that we can talk about later. So she runs into Andrew's room and she's like, Andrew, I can't lose the job. And then he, of course, is like, you won't lose the job. Don't worry. And then they embrace. And what happens, Michael?
Sexy time.
Yeah.
We get
And
some
that's
naked
when
shots.
Antonella was like, I am out of here.
Oh shit! Because it's
Yeah.
literally like there's like a rom-com music track to it, and you're like, "What the fuck is going on to it?" It's like, and it's presenting you like this is what's supposed to happen. Nina, the witch, is gone. Andrew finally gets to be with the woman he deserves, and she's a housemaid, but maybe they'll work out, right? And that's what you're being presented with. And of
Yeah.
course, it goes exactly to script because the next morning they go home and they pretend like nothing happened, but except they have one more sexy time right before Nina comes home. And when Nina comes home, Nina presents her evidence. She finds the playbill. She says, "I know where you were." We later learn through like another character, she must know where you are because of the phone. The phone is a tracking device. It's a leash. It's not actually a free phone. It's a leash.
Exactly.
And this leads to her freaking out. And then finally, Andrew snaps and says, "I'm not taking this anymore. Get out of my house. Get out of here. I'm going to be here with Millie." And Nina's like, "What? No. Oh, no." And then she leaves and she screams. And we think, wow. And it's so great. And
And
Andrew
we
and
think,
Millie's sexy time like explodes, and they're gonna have things
exactly.
like sex all over the house, the beautiful house. It's so great.
And here at this point, you're waiting for again, and Feig sets
And
it up nicely. You're waiting for Nina to show up, right?
yeah,
Like kind of, Fatal Attraction to show
exactly.
up and have the bunny burning or boiling and have this and that. And like that's what you're waiting for. You're like, okay, here it comes. But that's not what happened, is it, Michael?
No, instead, we haven't mentioned Enzo yet. Enzo is the weird, beautiful Italian
It's
landscaper who
so
has a lot of
weird.
landscaping to do in the winter, which is bullshit, right? Because it's like the entire film is snow covered, right? The this is presented in the wintertime. Landscaping ain't happening in the wintertime. There is nothing. There's some snow shoveling, but once the snow shoveling's done, that's all you need your landscaper for. But Enzo has been lurking the whole time, and he sees Nina through the window as she's making this perfect breakfast in bed for Andrew after they've had yet another morning sexy time, and it's on one of his mother's perfect plates from England. And she turns around, sees Enzo, drops a plate, shatters it, and she's like, "Oh, what the fuck?" Andrew comes down and says, "Oh, no matter. I know a plate person who can fix this," and immediately fires Enzo because it's his fault, not it's
Yeah.
not Millie's fault. And so they go upstairs to the attic room. They haven't done it in the triangle attic room yet. So they're like, "We got
No.
to take advantage of this." And he brings champagne, and now it switches. And this is where we have you ever read or watched Gone Girl?
No.
Okay, so Gone Girl was this another great trashy novel. I actually read this one and watched the film, and it's with Ben Affleck, and I can't remember the
Oh,
woman
okay.
who
I think
plays
I've
the
seen
lead.
that one.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
it's with Affleck,
And
I think I've seen it.
and right, and this is where I think Frida McFadden takes advantage of. It's a point of view change, right? So we're about to learn the real truth from another point of view, and it's set up with the way it's set up is that after they've had their champagne and done it in the attic triangle room, she suddenly wakes up and the room is bare. All the accoutrements, all the decorations around it are gone. There's literally no bed. There's no sheets or linens on the bed itself. It's just a mattress. It's just a refrigerator. And we see that Andrew has locked her in the room with that deadbolt, with that key, with that window that doesn't open, and she can't get out. And she's like, "What the fuck?" And then we jump right to Nina screaming at the car where we last saw her, and
Yeah.
it transitions to laughing, and it transitions to the Nina point of view finally. And this is the twist. This is the important part of the film, and this is, you know, it's still on the edge of parody, which is so funny because it's not as straight as Gone Girl. Gone Girl, if you read the book, it's kind of amazing where she's describing how she's performing being a perfect wife to her incredibly boring husband, and making him feel all great even though he totally sucks, and she's super smart and she's super like shuttered. And this is not that. Nina is still another person that we don't know, and we learn that Nina was basically a Millie of sorts, right?
Yeah. Nina had it's interesting because once Nina is free, she it turns her cries and screams turn into laughs, and then you realize, oh my god, she's liberated, she's happy.
Yeah.
And then she
Yep.
goes to some hotel room with a bottle of champagne of her own, and she's partying on her own and dancing. It's such a weird scene, again, over the
Yeah.
top and intentionally. But yeah, it turns out that Nina herself was a young single mother who was working at a law firm, had to drop out because she got pregnant. And there was a scene where she went into a lawyer's meeting and they were not very forgiving. And given that she was a young mother with a brand new baby, still having to work, she was lactating. It was showing through her shirt. And the guy who was her boss, pointed out, but actually Andrew was there. And Andrew saw her and basically followed up and said, look, in the hallways or whatever, said, look, the guy was a real jerk. He was not nice to you.
Hmm.
I understand all you're going through. And so her and Andrew get together. And obviously, here is like her way out, right? She meets this rich, attractive, very humble, very caring man. And, she feels like, hey, I hit the jackpot.
Yeah, she sure did. I mean, he's so beautiful. He's a
Oh my
saint,
God.
right? But this is when the actual subtext, which is the real text of the movie, which is a story of abuse and the psychology of abuse and the language of abuse through Andrew, starts to be laid bare.
Yeah.
Um, and it's every time that we first learn what, I can't remember what at first. Oh yeah, he starts chiding her about the roots in her hair. Okay.
Yes, that's right.
And she says, "Yeah, I'm going to go get it done." And she says, and he says to her, you know, "No, not yet." She doesn't get it done, and she gets locked upstairs in the attic in the triangle room. And she's kind of like, "What the fuck?" And it's the same thing that Millie's in right now when we've left Millie. It's like, "What the fuck? I thought you were perfect." And he starts using the language of abuse and correction. It's like your hair roots are a privilege, like the privilege where you're so funny over and over again,
Exactly.
and everything. It's just a stage. Like we start to learn that the entire house is like a stage for this performance, and the real horror is actually the hidden chamber where the women are like isolated and disciplined and psychologically reshaped, because what happens next is like, as punishment, I need you to pull out 100 hairs from their roots and put them in this envelope and give them back to me, and then you can come out. And she's like, no motherfucking way, that's so stupid. But of course eventually she does, and we start to see and understand that Nita actually has been in this psychological trap. And then you start to realize like all of her mania is a performance,
Yeah.
right? It's a defense mechanism to deal with Andrew.
And she has methodically thought out how to put Millie in her place so that she
Mm-hmm.
can escape. Like, so this was an actually very intentional. She knew she had a background, criminal background. She knew all these things about her that she could pull out in front of Andrew and embarrass her, but also put Andrew in a situation where he defends her. And so, like, she's essentially allowing Andrew to let go of her as he attaches to Millie so she
Mm-hmm.
can escape.
Right. And it's needed because what's so cool is like this is where the title of the episode is like Andrew. And this is where I think it's interesting. Like, that Paul Feig and the action, the writer, Freedom McFadden, you imagine all this language comes directly from the book. I wouldn't be surprised if it did. I always love it when this kind of film is too new, so it doesn't get that kind of analysis, and it probably never will. But the things like, if you let me, I can help you become a better person. This is the language of like, look, you want this. You want this beautiful house. You wanted all this wealth. I'm here. I'm the answer, but there are conditions. And this is the conditions of wealth. And I'll tell you, like, through my wife and some of the wealth that she's surrounded by and some of the stories, her brother who works in a bar out in Amagansett in the Hamptons wealthy enclave, some of the stories, Nick would tell us about what women endure to have these kind of husbands that have all this wealth and allow themselves to be quote unquote trophy wives, right? And
Yeah.
this is a narrative about that. This is the cost of being a trophy wife. You have to be the better person that I want you to be. It's a privilege. The story of privilege is the privilege of having me as your husband. If you want the St. Andrew, then you better behave, you better perform. And there are rules. I
And
think some of those rules are based on some sad real life situations, honestly.
and you better wear all white.
Yes, for the most part. Yeah. Sydney Sweeney did it super well with her outfit that she rocked that was given to
Exactly.
her by Nina because she wanted to set her up to be
It
this
was so good.
perfect, like costumed doll for Andrew to obsess over. And so we learn that she's spent years like kind of trapped in this reality because we also learn that she was set up to made to look like that her daughter, she allowed her daughter to drown because when she's first released from the room after finally getting the second 100 hairs from the root after one didn't have a root and she was forced to do it again, he gives her some water, but it's spiked with a cocktail, and because she runs down to see Cece's still only at this point in the flashback, what, like 3 or 4 or something like that, and she immediately passes out in front of her, and then it turns into she's waking up while her daughter's in the tub, and she goes to get her, and the police are there. So it's all a concoction, it's all a fabrication. Her performance is a bad, even a psychotic woman, right? And she has to accept it in order to stay with her daughter.
Yeah, it's also very Jane Eyre, like the woman in the attic.
Oh
Like this
yeah,
whole idea of the mad woman in the attic, and it kind of is
yeah.
playing a little bit about that. Like, yeah, I
Hmm.
mean, interesting. Anyway, go ahead.
And so we jump back to Millie finally, and so Millie's now being forced to do the same performance that Nina had for so long. And this time the rule broken is the plate. Of course, this is an irreplaceable plate. There is no plate man, Millie. He ain't coming. He ain't fixing this. And just the fact that you put it in a bag and didn't even clean it, that's the bridge too
Yeah,
far.
exactly. He didn't even clean it.
Yeah. And so, you know, he's forcing her. What is her punishment? She has to use one of the shards of the plate
And cut herself.
21 times, deep and
Yeah.
straight cuts. And at the same time, she finds the cheese knife from the early like opening scene, like it's like a Chekhov's cheese knife, right? I think just like it's a Chekhov's like attic, prison. We didn't realize that it was going to be a prison. It was set up like it doesn't have a way to get out. If it's locked from the outside. But we know that Nina. What's interesting is Nina presents through her daughter that she believes that Millie's going to be able to handle this.
Yeah.
And this is the beginning of probably one of my most favorite parts of this film is Millie's set up to be kind of the superhero woman who knows how to handle abusive men.
Yeah. And this is where you learn Millie's backstory, that she
Yep.
basically was in a boarding school. And,
Mhm.
as a part of control, how does that specifically go? What did she do? She basically killed someone.
Yeah,
But
she's in college and she catches this man, raping this woman and she just bludgeons him, to rescue her. She's like, I'm going to rescue you by bludgeoning the man with a glass globe to the head repeatedly.
that's right. Yeah. And so she goes and she's convicted of manslaughter or whatever. She's serving 15 years. She does 10 of those years and she's out on good behavior, which explains the probation. But now she's in the situation where she's got another abusive man and
Yep.
like she goes into, like you're saying, superhero mode.
Yeah, and this is what's so great. It's like, and this is how like Nina's like, Andrew doesn't know she was in jail for murder. Murder of abusive men, right? And so after she does her 21 cuts, Andrew lets his guard down, brings her in, and she takes the cheese knife and stabs him in the fucking neck. And you're like, oh, he's gonna like bleed out right in the floor. But no, it's like a horror trope movie or a thriller. So that the evil man. And now we finally learn we also know the intruder was lying in plain sight in Andrew. It's neither Nina nor is it Millie. It's truly Andrew, and it culminates in this wonderful way where you know she locks him in the room, which is
That's
awesome,
right.
right? She successfully, stabs him, escapes, locks him in the room, has his phone, has his key, and now he's stuck. And now he's the one who's going to receive the corrective, coercive language of how to be a better person.
Yeah, and her basically solution or correction or punishment for him is to take a pair of pliers and pull out his front tooth so it ruins his, winning smile, if you will.
Yeah, that his
And
mother loves so much.
yeah, and I had to pass through that. I can't watch people pull out their own teeth.
Oh no,
But
I did the same thing, Jim. I was exactly the same. I was like, 10 seconds ahead, 10 seconds ahead, 10
yeah,
seconds ahead.
exactly. I'm not gonna sit there and watch that. I'm too old for that
No.
shit. My teeth will be falling
Isn't that
out soon enough. I
isn't
don't
that
need
so
that.
funny? Oh man, I can't believe you did that too. That's so funny. That's
So, but
awesome.
so there we
This is why
are.
we're podcast bros, aren't we?
Exactly. So there we are. He's in there. He's ripped out his tooth. He's like, now can I come out? And she's like, not yet. You can come out, but not yet. She goes down. But Nina, after speaking with Cece, and Cece's like, Mom, are we going to really leave her there? Because Cece's
Yeah.
been part of this whole picture. And, Nina, in fact, is saving Cece from this abuse as well, getting the kid out.
Right.
And
Right.
Cece's like, Ma, I think we got to do the right thing. I think we got to make sure that Millie's all right. So Nina goes back in, right?
Finally, she comes back.
She comes back and she assumes wrongfully that, Millie's upstairs locked in the attic, just like she had been. So she runs up there and without really, she says, hey, I'm here. I'm here to save it. She hears nothing from the other side of the door, opens the door, and out comes Andrew. And
Yeah.
he comes out in the vengeance.
Yeah, and he tosses her down the stairs and starts chasing Millie. And this is where it's kind of this performance of this language of abuse, which is trying to it's the classic apologetic husband, right? Like, Millie, I miss you so much. I need you, Millie. First, it's projected into Millie, right? And as Millie pops up and whacks him around once more, and then Nina's hiding upstairs, and he goes up to Nina, and he goes to Nina. Oh, never mind, Millie. She was never right for me. Let's come back together. It's like, and it's so great. Let's start fresh. Pretend like this didn't happen. I still love you. You're that cute, hopeless, helpless secretary I saved.
That's
I
right.
was just trying to help you, right? You had no hope of a future. What were you going to do? You would never have this if it wasn't for me. He's coercing her, thinking he's going to be able to convince Nina to come back, and it's just a phone call away to the law enforcement, and we'll just have Millie back in jail forever. And then she gets her fantasy speech. And I love this speech because Nina's response is just like, your St. Andrew facade is all a facade. Daddy gave you your job.
Yeah.
You know, you don't even have a kid. It's my kid, you asshole. And I fucking hate you. And you're doing this all for your crazy fucking mother. You're a mama's boy,
And your
And that
mother
leads,
hates you. Oh no, your
yeah,
wife that hate. Yeah, exactly.
yeah. And this leads to the setup where basically it's like, I'd rather be dead. And she's like, oh, I can handle that. But of course, we have Millie there, and she clocks him and pushes him down the Chekhov's banister that was presented in the beginning of the film, where
So
Nina
good.
had literally talked about, I should just have my little chalk outline here where if I was to fall.
Exactly.
And this leads to this like impossibly performative situation of like, we'll just pretend he was changing a light bulb in the middle of the night and he just fell. And then the police show up, and Millie is left. And of course, the police officer is a woman, and she's sympathetic because she had a sister named Kathy who was once engaged to Andrew, and she's in on it. So it's like the sisterhood moment, right?
Yeah, and she's going to overlook that puncture wound, that knife wound in the neck as a result.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of physical action and the tooth popping out from the fall.
Exactly.
And this all leads to the funeral and the mother showing up, who is wonderfully played by Elizabeth Perkins from Weeds fame, which I love that show if you ever saw it. And it's all a neat bow, right? And you're like, oh, this is so nice. And Nina even gives Millie $100K little a little signing bonus for having, or exiting bonus from her job as a housemaid. But then you get the fun, best ending of she goes to her next job. I just learned I want to be someone, just a housemaid. That's what I'm good at. And she's at another wealthy home, and we glimpse that it's a woman that's abused. And this other abused woman says, Nina recommended you and said you'd be able to help. Can you help?
And you see the bruise on her wrist, and like you
Yeah.
basically know, boom, they exact with everything they telescope. This is what's going to happen. And Sydney, what's her last name?
Sweeney.
Sweeney has the same expression she's had the whole movie.
Yeah. And just so you know, everybody, Frida McFadden has 2 books sequels to The Housemaid.
Does she? Yeah. So
There's
more
the
to
house.
come.
There's that. Yep. There's The Housemaid Secret, and The Housemaid is Watching. Released 3 years in a row. 22, 23 from the original. 22, 23, 24. She's a machine. So
This
don't be surprised if we
so
see a crusading Sydney McSweeney. And then I hope, because of it, I hope if it does happen, they go even more campy. Like they
oh my
go
gosh.
more full Verhoeven, right?
I mean, once people pick it up, and you're right, the Spanish critic really did have it hit the nail on the head. Like once people realize what he's doing here and how much fun they're all having, and like how over the top all this is, it becomes a different movie. And it
Yeah.
becomes a great movie versus like, and I still liked it. Like I still
Yeah.
loved like many of the scenes, I loved that it was a little salacious, I love all these things, but then now realizing like, oh, because when I first watched Starship Troopers, I was like, oh, that's just a really good old school B movie sci-fi. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then I realized, no, it's just a complete critique of the fascism that's undergirding American culture that kind of came to be. And here we have a complete critique of this, like you said, trad wife, wealthy McMansion, like Instagram culture where everyone's trying to pretend like this is what our life is really like, but you really know it's a fucking nightmare behind the scenes.
Yeah, there's a cost to being the performer for your perfect St. Andrew husband. And I think that's what's also so ultimately so great is the message is still there, right?
Yeah,
And that
it
message
is.
is, it's almost, it also, in the end, it reminds me of Quentin Tarantino and this fantasy he has in his last, like the Inglorious Bastards. It's like, what if we just could have them kill fucking Hitler? That would be awesome. What if we could just have them in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, just fucking kill those rat bastards that are trying to murder this pregnant woman in her Hollywood house. We need these Avengers out there, these stories of
Yeah.
avenging, women and men that do the dirty work of fixing wrongs. And that's what I think ultimately they're interested in. I love it for that.
Wow. Well, I
So
came into this session very skeptical, but I come out a believer.
me too. All right. That's another one, Jim Groom. Thanks so much, everybody, for listening.